Let's discuss a name that's been making headlines, especially in the last few days: Aiden Fucci. Aiden Fucci is a 14-year-old boy from Florida who has been charged with a very serious crime. The murder of Tristyn Bailey, a 13-year-old girl who was a classmate of his. The case has shocked the community and drawn national attention, with many asking the question: who is Aiden Fucci, and what led him to allegedly commit this heinous act? In this video, we're going to dive deep into the details of the case and try to piece together the story of what happened that night. On the 9th of May 2021, a 13-year-old girl named Tristyn Bailey was reported missing by her mother in St. Johns County, Florida. Tristyn Bailey was one of 5 children of Stacy and Forrest Bailey. She lived in Durbin Crossing in northwest St. Johns County, which is located in northeastern Florida, just south of Jacksonville. Bailey was a student and cheerleader at Patriot Oaks Academy in St. Johns. Early that morning, Tristyn's sister, Sophia, assuming her sister was still in bed, had gone to her room to get her for Mother's Day breakfast, only to discover that she wasn't in bed. A call was urgently placed to 911 and the sheriff's office put out an urgent missing person alert. The next day, her body was found in a wooded area near her home. She had been brutally beaten and stabbed multiple times. Police launched an investigation and soon identified Aiden Fucci, 14 years old, as a suspect in the case. Fucci was a classmate of Bailey's at Patriot Oaks Academy, and they were both part of the same friend group. According to video coverage, after Tristyn returned with her family from an evening night out, she was seen walking alone in the neighborhood at around 12:30 a.m. About 40 minutes later, 2 people, believed to be Tristyn and Aiden, were then seen walking together. 2 hours later, from the same camera, Aiden was seen walking alone in the opposite direction, holding what looks like a pair of white Nike shoes. After the body found was confirmed to belong to Tristyn, and based on video coverage, investigators obtained a search warrant for Fucci's home and found clothing with blood on it, as well as a knife with what appeared to be blood and hair, a white piece of paper with handwriting with possible blood on it, and a pair of wet blue denim jeans in a laundry basket. They also found blood and dirt on the drain in the bathroom sink next to Aiden's bedroom. Fucci was then arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The case drew national attention, as it's not often that such young children are involved in such a heinous crime. The community was left reeling, and many people wondered what could have led a 13-year-old to commit such a violent act. Especially since Tristyn was found with 114 stab wounds on her face, neck, arms, and hands, 49 of which were deemed defensive according to the medical examiner. The most confusing fact was that even though the crime was clearly premeditated due to witnesses' testimony of the words they heard from Fucci and his social media posts, there was no motive for the since friends claimed that before that fateful day, they were on good terms. As the case unfolded, more details emerged about Fucci's behavior in the days and weeks leading up to the murder. Witnesses testified that Fucci had made disturbing comments about wanting to hurt someone and that he had been in possession of more than one knife around the time of the crime. According to a testimony made by his girlfriend, Aiden had on more than one occasion mimed placing a knife at her neck from the back or stabbing her outrightly. Classmates also testified that Aiden had 2 different knives he had named Picker and Poker. A knife matching Picker was found in his girlfriend's house, while the one matching Poker was recovered by a diver in the pond near where Tristyn's body was found. The worst part was that the knife was found with a broken edge. Aiden had stabbed Tristyn, likely when she was still alive and struggling to the extent that the knife had broken. The broken part was eventually found on Tristyn's scalp. Another thing that was noticed was Fucci's attitude toward the murder. A friend of his girlfriend who claimed never to have liked Fucci testified that Aiden never cared for anything and that his physical expression was always like someone that was numb. Fucci lived to that testimony. On the day he was arrested, while in the police car, he snapped himself and posted it on Snapchat with the caption asking whether anyone had seen Tristyn recently. In another picture, he informed people that he was currently chilling in the cop's vehicle.
We're having fun in a f***ing cop car.
Yep. Tristyn.
What's up, guys?
Yep.
Tristyn, if you f***ing walk out the damn...
When you see this in a month.
These captions, coupled with statements from his friends and peers, really brought it to light that the crime had been without motive. Whether Tristyn was actually selected beforehand, or if she just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, is what the authorities couldn't conclude. During his questioning, Aiden gave different accounts of his actions between 1:10 a.m. on May 9, when he and Tristyn left a friend's house, and 3:30 a.m. when he returned to his home. He initially told investigators they had walked a short way together and then parted, each going home. When he was questioned why it took him more than 2 hours to walk 1.5 miles, he changed his story. He told them that during the walk, Tristyn had grabbed his private part and he responded by shoving her. She fell and hit her head, he said, and he walked away. He said he did not know if she got up, and that he walked around a while by himself after the incident before finally going home. His parents also spoke with him in an interview room at the sheriff's office. When he was told by his mother that Tristyn was dead, his response was said to be, "How is it my problem?" She told him he was the last person to be seen with the girl. His parents questioned him about his actions the previous night and asked him several times about what DNA or physical evidence might be turned up. Both advised him to find his story and stick to it, the sheriff's documents say. It was also reported that, after he was taken for questioning by deputies, Aiden's mother had hand-washed a pair of her son's jeans. During their conversation recorded in the interview room, he told her he had been wearing the jeans the night before. She asked him if there was anything on them and clarified, in a whisper, "Blood," and then, without waiting for his response, and whether oblivious to the fact that she was being recorded or due to her overwhelming love for him, she then suggested to him that he had been wearing chackies rather than the jeans, and added, "Right?" He agreed with her. On Friday, the 24th of March, 2023, Fucci pled guilty to first-degree murder. After 2 long days of testimony, including hours of heart-wrenching victim impact statements from Tristyn's parents, grandmother, best friend, and siblings, including her older sister, Alexis Bailey, who began her statement by dropping into a jar 114 Aquastone hearts, one for each of the stab wounds Tristyn endured at the hands of Fucci, the judge sentenced Aiden. The judge called the murder horrific and senseless and expressed his hope that the verdict would bring some measure of closure to Bailey's family and the community at large. According to Judge Ardley Smith, the most shocking and confusing part was that the crime wasn't about greed, retaliation, revenge, rejection, or due to some fit of uncontrollable anger. It just had no motive. It was done for no other reason than to satisfy this defendant's internal desire to feel what it was like to kill someone, the judge said. It was committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without any pretense for moral or legal justification. However, because Fucci is a juvenile, an automatic life sentence was not an option. Instead, the teen faced a minimum of 40 years to life in prison. After Fucci serves 25 years of the life term, the judge can review the possibility of a lighter sentence according to Florida law, but 40 years would still be the minimum. According to First Coast News, During his 20 months in Duval County Jail awaiting trial, Fucci has been in several fights, threatened to stab a fellow teen inmate, and been pepper-sprayed by corrections officers. One of his inmates also said he had boasted of stabbing someone face-to-face. It should be noted that most teenagers that commit heinous crimes are labelled as mentally ill and rehabilitated. But when psychologist Pritchard was asked whether Aiden could be rehabilitated, he seemed to have a lot to say about it. Pritchard said he's done more than 10,000 forensic evaluations, and a regular part of them have involved violent offenders, and he has worked extensively with children. Through all of the records and people interviewed, he said only 2 referred to Fucci as mature. Teachers also said he had academic difficulties, primarily in reading and math, and lacked motivation. One teacher went as far as to describe him as a punk who was always looking for a fight. But overall, their comments ranged from quiet and respectful to defiant. As far as rehabilitation, he said we'd like to see more compassion and feeling bad about someone's actions once they are incarcerated. However, Fucci is well documented to have had several negative issues while in jail. He was extorting commissary items from juveniles and making threats to harm or kill them. So there's a concern to him clinically that maybe Fucci can't understand what he's caused for so many people or express any sorrow. He showed callousness about his behaviour in the back of the police car and doesn't seem to have the same kind of makeup that most people do, Pritchard said. He said he doesn't see him as a good candidate to get better. At this point, I would say his prognosis for rehabilitation is poor, Pritchard said finally. As for the apology letter that Aiden reportedly wrote to Tristyn's parents, it was taken with less value than a grain of salt. Most likely, either of his parents or his defense attorneys made that up to make Aiden look more human, but based on his still expressionless face and reports from his stay in the prison, Aiden still didn't feel a thing about his crime. According to the judge, the case was the most difficult and shocking that this county had ever dealt with. Based on the negative emotions of the people in the town, his defense attorney tried to get the trial moved to another location, but was denied. Forrest Bailey, Tristyn's father, thanked the prosecutor, sheriff, and judge for the life sentence. He also asked people to be kind to members of Fucci's family. Could the crime have been prevented? That can't exactly be concluded, but based on the number of people who had heard Aiden detailing his plan to kill someone, something could have been done. According to Aiden's friend and best friend, and from what they heard, Aiden, his parents' mother, and a stepfather weren't available. His father was said to have abused him physically and his mother emotionally. Can we conclude that it was his family's fault? Of course, but not everyone with parental issues turns out to stab a friend that trusts you over 100 times and subsequently shows no iota of remorse. Aiden was a mature person who was aware of his actions but never cared much for the consequences. As parents, we should try to listen to our kids. Kids talk. They talk about friends, about what someone said at school, but only if we parents are listening.